Training camp, day one in the books, and I have 49ers beat writer Tracy Sandler here to break down everything going on. You'll be able to ask questions. I'll be asking questions. I want to know everything that's going on with the San Francisco 49ers. So we're here right now. The San Francisco 49ers evening show, not morning show, evening show. Let's go.
Intercepted. It is picked off by Eric Crocker. Over midfield, he'll run it all the way into the end zone. Touchdown.
Cross Talk TV podcast. Peace.
Welcome to another episode of the San Francisco 49ers Evening Show. I'm your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back Eric Crocker. And as y'all can see, I have a special guest today. That is Miss Tracy Sandler. You can find her on Twitter at 49ers Fangirl. We're going to ask her all about that. She is a beat writer for your San Francisco 49ers. Tracy, real quick, I have to ask you, how long have you been covering the 49ers?
You know, it's so funny that you asked because in my head, it's been like 2 years, but this is my 7th season. Wow. I realized the other day that this is the 7th season, which I kind of can't believe, but yeah, 7 years. This will be the 7th
So what was going on the first year? Because the 49ers, they've gone through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of changes. So was that the Tom Sula year?
It's funny. I started 49ers Fangirl the Tom Sula year, but I started really covering the team the Chip Kelly year.
So you are the CEO and founder of Fangirl. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like it's been the coolest thing. You're bringing women kind of and giving them a platform to talk about different sports. And I feel like not enough people are taking notice of exactly what it is that you're doing. So let everyone know a little bit about the Fangirl and what exactly it is that you do with it.
Well, thank you. So I actually started it as 49ers Fangirl, and that was the first team we covered. And I originally did it because I grew up a 49ers fan, and I wanted to find a place or create a place for content that spoke to women. I just didn't feel like there was enough content out there that spoke to women and spoke to women in a way that was not at all condescending. It's just, as a female fan myself, I like all aspects of the game. I like the game. I like the analysis. I like everything. But I also like the lifestyle aspect of sports. I want to know what other women in sports are doing. So that was kind of the beginning of that. And then it grew to Fangirl Sports Network. And we've gone through a few iterations. We used to have fangirls for every team. And during COVID, we changed that business model. And now we're creating a bunch of original content. We have 2 podcasts. We're on the verge of launching a few more, but we have one called Get My Job, where every week I interview a woman in sports and talk about her journey and advice she has for young women in the industry. The Tracy Sandler Show, which is sports and lifestyle, and probably the only show out there that really focuses on the 49ers and the Dodgers. So there are not a lot of people like me focusing on those 2 teams at the same time. 49ers is the reporter, Dodgers as the fan. So we're doing that. And then we have Community Monday, 5 Fun Facts, the Friday 5, like all in memes. And then we're sharing news and analysis. And then, of course, there's the stuff I do covering the 49ers. So it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, we're trying to, create this niche for female fans because I just didn't feel there was a place specifically for female fans, especially female fans like me who really like all of it.
It was really awesome, obviously, what you're doing there and meeting you in person. It's very clear when I showed up as like a credentialed member of the media. I don't look like the other people, but I felt like everyone there was so cool. You guys were all so welcoming. Didn't make me feel like I was kind of this weird outsider because a lot of the 49ers beat writers have been working together for years. And I did notice a little back and forth banter between you and Chris Biederman. And does that go back just because you got one Michigan alum with you and then one Ohio State alum with him? I see it all the time, especially when your 2 teams play.
Yes, we definitely have a lot of that going on. Chris has become one of my best friends as well. And so the banter, it really works. It definitely started with Michigan, Ohio State, and we do it all the time. Josh Dubow from the AP also went to Michigan. So the 3 of us, it's like a constant chatter on Michigan, Ohio State. And then Chris and I, that's just kind of part of the friendship. It's fun, though. We have a very good banter, really make each other laugh. But yes, the Michigan, Ohio State stuff. I finally won the bet this year. It took years for me to win the bet.
Yeah.
I finally won the bet this year.
And I think I lost a little bit of money on that game. I think I put money on Ohio State. They were higher flying the offense, and Michigan just kind of stifled them a little bit, played
Stifled
some of
them.
their best ball of the season. Speaking of best ball, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, right? And everybody knows where I'm going with this. We got to talk about the quarterback position. Nate Sudfeld, the backup quarterback for the 49ers, he went 11 for 11 today in practice. I know everybody thought I was going to start with Trey Lance, but a lot of
The
people are
elephant
kind
in the room
of
is for sure Nate Sudfeld.
right. A lot of people were really worried about this whole dynamic of losing Jimmy Garoppolo. And it's like, well, what if Trey Lance gets hurt? So we don't have to dive too deep into Nate Sudfeld, but obviously he was on the roster all of last season. He's been around the NFL for a few years now, about 4 or 5 years. Does it look like he is kind of setting himself up to say, you know what, if need be in a pinch, I am a guy that can step in for a game or two and kind of keep this thing afloat? Because today, again, started the team in 7-on-7, 11 for 11.
Well, it's funny because last year, kind of towards the end of training camp, the preseason, I asked Kyle, do you feel like you have 2 quarterbacks right now that are ready to start? And he said, I do. And then he said, I think we have 3 quarterbacks that are ready to start. And he talked about Nate Sudfeld. At the time, I was like, I'm sure you do. But actually, I think as it turns out, yes, I think this team is excited about Nate Sudfeld. They did sign him in the offseason. They didn't bring in another backup quarterback. They've been very clear that Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be on this roster week 1. So I think they do believe that Nate Sudfeld can get the job done if needed. And it looks like he can. As you said, he's been in the league a few years. I don't think they're looking for him to start. We're not looking at a quarterback competition here. But if need be, it looks like he could come in and get the job done as needed.
Right, that's awesome. And now to talk about the real elephant in the room is Trey Lance. And this is a guy, I don't know if he feels the pressure or not. If he doesn't, I definitely feel it for him, right? This is a guy who's taken over a team who 2 out of the last 3 years, they've been in the NFC championship game. The goals and really expectations of this team is almost like Super Bowl or bust. And I'm like, you know what, guys, temper your expectations just a little bit. You have a guy who really hasn't played a lot of football, but we'll get to his play in today's practice. How has he been carrying himself? Does he look like it's too much? Does he look worried? Or does it look like, you know what, he's just kind of built for this, as some of the guys have been saying?
He looks like he's built for it. And it's funny, when he came into his first OTAs media availability, he was like a different person. And to his credit, he said, last year I was the rookie. I was the backup quarterback. It was kind of an awkward position to be in. He walked in and he felt like QB1. He was confident, really let his personality show. He was joking around. It doesn't look like it's too big for him. That being said, obviously games are not won in press conferences, but in terms of leadership qualities and personality and someone who could lead a team, he certainly seems to have all of that. And then the play remains to be seen, but he did look good. And he looked good. Even in OTAs, he looked so different. I mean, I'll take you back to the first start against Arizona and then the start against Houston. Tremendous difference, I felt, between those 2 starts. Then in OTAs, he looked a lot different. And, I was talking to someone today and I said, the thing with training camp that's so funny is they're supposed to make mistakes in training camp. I mean, that's the point. So they make the mistakes in training camp so they don't make it during the season. So sometimes it's hard to glean, but in terms of his play today and just the way he's carrying himself and the way everybody talks about him, it feels like he's going to be the guy.
Awesome. So what did you see today actually on the field? A lot of people talked about his release and throwing motion and they nitpick. I saw people, there was this just routes on there in the throw. And then you see people critiquing that, like, oh, look at his release. It looks great. Or you have some people like, oh man, that loopy release. And I mean, they're nitpicking every part of his game, but just when it came down to throwing the ball and completing it to receivers during 7-on-7, during team drill, how did he look? Did he look like the game maybe was moving too fast, or was he processing things faster than what you've seen since last season?
Definitely didn't look like the game was moving too fast. I mean, he was making plays in the pocket. He seemed super confident in his reads, and he's obviously working with the first team defense. As you mentioned earlier, this is a top 5 defense. So, he's working with them. He seems super confident in those reads. And, I think the thing with Trey, it's like, he's going to be nitpicked because they traded so much of their future to get him when they had a really good quarterback on the roster. So everything he does is going to be nitpicked. And that's kind of a tough position to be in. The positive position of that is he was a number 3 pick who ended up going to a really good football team, and a really good football team that has so many pieces around him. And he had that year to really learn. He had that year of being on a team that went from 3-5 to the NFC Championship game. He had the year to learn under Jimmy Garoppolo, and both of them handled that well. So people are going to nitpick, but in terms of what we saw today, he looked really comfortable, really confident. I mean, you really would have just thought, like, yeah, that's the quarterback. And you wouldn't think he was a guy who's played like 14 games in college and started 2 NFL games that they're just throwing him to the wolves. He doesn't look like that. He really doesn't. He looks ready. I'm not going to say, ready to go, and they're going to be ups and downs, but he looks good and kind of built for this.
You talked about throwing them to the wolves, and the 49ers defense, they have a lot of wolves and a lot of guys that are out there hunting on that side of the ball. And one thing that I've seen just kind of from my experience playing is a lot of times during training camp and kind of getting into the season, the defense starts faster than the offense. The 49ers defense definitely has big times expectations. They were a top 3 defense last year, and I'm pretty sure people will expect them to kind of replicate that, especially if everybody can kind of stay healthy. They got help on the outside. They're definitely healthier there. The front 7, we know what they can do. They also drafted a guy named Drake Jackson. So how did the defense look as a whole when you watched them last year? Does it look like it's a team that's kind of carrying over that momentum from 2021 season?
Absolutely. And it's interesting, even the addition of Charvarius Ward, I think really changes things on the defense. I think before Emmanuel Mosley was kind of, at least at certain points last year, was kind of the guy. And he is really the only one who broke up passes actually today. Trey's 2 incompletions were against Emmanuel Mosley, but Charvarius Ward brings something to the other side that the 49ers haven't had in a while. And generally, yes, they really look the same. And a fun little tidbit is, Fred Warner is always very excited in practice. And Brandon Ayuk said it after, Fred is annoying. And he means that with love and in the nicest way possible, because they are just going for it. But yeah, the defense looks great. I mean, they really don't look like they missed a step at all. I think the biggest question really for them is going to be Javon Kinlaw. And can he fill that void left by DJ Jones? It's a huge year for him. But kind of what we've seen so far, what we saw today, the defense, honestly, they looked great, and just the same defense that you had last year. I'd be pretty surprised, to be honest, if that group missed a step.
And I tell everybody all the time, man, like the 49ers, they lose guys, they replace them. They lose coaches, they replace them. They do a really good job of just making sure that everyone is as prepared as possible. And I always give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe too much, because I don't typically see too much drop off, especially if they have, at the very least, decent quarterback play. We've seen how far they can go. You do have a super chat.
Can I say one thing on the defense that I forgot to mention?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Just something I kind of want to keep an eye on in camp, of course, is who's going to be the pass rusher on the other side of Nick Bosa. We knew this was coming. The 49ers released D4 today, and that was not a surprise. But I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to watch in camp and throughout the season. So that is the one place on the defense that I think that we all have to keep an eye on. Sorry.
Did you notice anything with Drake Jackson out there?
Not really. I didn't really notice much today, and that's something I'll probably be keeping a closer eye on as we go on. I was very Trey Lance focused today for obvious reasons, but that's what we keeping on. But I'll be keeping a close eye on it, because I think we'll have a better idea in like 2.5 weeks as to what's going to happen on the other side of that line.
And I know how that is, being there at training camp, even if it's OTAs, but just watching a practice. If you're watching everything, you're really watching nothing, because everything's moving pretty fast.
I pick days. That's so funny that you say that. I pick kind of positions and position groups day after day, because you can't see it all.
Yeah, definitely. So I did have one more question for you, and then there is a super chat with a question as well for you. And a lot of people showing love. I'll go through some of these comments real quick. You see the Go Tracy here. There was some. Here we go. Tracy is a freaking legend.
Oh, thanks.
A lot of people excited to see you on the show. So we definitely gonna have to.
Go Blue.
Here we go. Always appreciate everything that you do, Tracy. So you got some people in here that really appreciate a lot of the things you do. I wanted to ask you, after what you've seen today, is there anything that you're looking forward to seeing tomorrow? Just something where you want to see, you know what, this was a little shaky, so I want to see how do they look to improve on that. Or, man, this guy was great today. Can he do it again?
This guy was great today. Can he do it again? I know he can do it again, but Brandon Ayuk, because I think Brandon Ayuk is such a cool story, because what he went through the first half of last season after such a big rookie year, not everybody overcomes that. I do think it takes a special person to say, okay, you know what, maybe my coach is right. Maybe I need to do this different. Maybe, and not let ego get involved. And so what we saw from him the second last half of last year was great. He trained with Trey Lance for much of the offseason. He had a really good practice today. He had, I think, a catch. I'm having trouble with words today. A catch from both Trey Lance and Nate Sudfeld in 7-on-7s, and I think 2 from Nate Sudfeld in 11-on-11s. And he had a great day. And I just really feel like he's going to have such a breakout year. So he's going to be, for me, a really fun one to watch in camp. And then the corners, to me, is interesting. We don't know who's going to start at nickel. I kind of think it's going to be Samuel Womack. I think he's going to win that starting job. And there's depth at that position that we have not seen on this team in like a gazillion years. And so now they have options, and there's so much that they can do. So I think it's going to be a really fun position group to watch as well.
Oh, that's exciting to hear right there. And a lot of people have had a lot of questions about that nickel position. Who's going to be the starter there to start the season? And everyone asked me because, I'm supposed to be the DB guru. Right. And I'm like, guys, I have no idea. This thing is so wide open. I know Emmanuel Mosley could play there, but do they want to just keep him purely on the outside on every single down? The other guy you talked about, Samuel Womack, he's a rookie. So without me being there and seeing him in person, it's like, man, I don't know if he's ready for it. But so far, it sounds like you're pretty intrigued by him.
I am definitely intrigued by him. And I know it's usually a more veteran position because it is such an important position. But I don't know, there's something about that kid. I think he's going to be special. And there's also something about the 49ers in the later rounds of the draft. I mean, that is where they find their gold, no pun intended, because they are the 49ers. And I feel like he is going to be another kind of piece of gold that they found late.
All right, so here we go. We have a question for you from my guy, Gamon. And Gamon's pretty cool. He's always interacting on the show. He says, really hope you bust out the, what is that, sequin jersey?
I used to have sequined, I still have them, like bedazzled 49er jerseys, but I don't really wear them as often. But I do have bedazzled 49er jerseys, but I don't have any. The only one I have left right now is Jimmy Garoppolo. I have a Jimmy Garoppolo and a Colin Kaepernick, and so
neither one on the team right now.
Right, so I need to update.
He also wanted to know, what was the experience like when you became a credentialed member of the press corps?
Well, that is actually a great question. And kind of to your point earlier, Eric, this is a really good beat. And this is the only beat I've been on. So I don't know what it's like in other places. But this is a beat of people who get along, who support each other. Everyone's really funny, actually, as well, which is kind of a nice aside. There's like a lot of joking. But, when I first came in there, I was 49ers fangirl, and I'd started my own thing. And it was different. I wasn't coming from a paper or a television station. It was my thing. And it had started with my fandom. And obviously moved into something else, but it was pretty cool. The organization was great. The other members of the beat were great. And it was, I definitely had those days where I'm like, somewhere my 11-year-old self is just freaking out at what I'm doing. And I still have those days. I had that day, the Super Bowl in Miami. I have that kind of every training camp. And so it was a really cool experience, and I've loved it.
Awesome. I did want to ask you too, you just mentioned, going to different stadiums and stuff like that. Y'all are always on the road. Mm-hmm. What is it like? Like, what is it like going to some of these different stadiums? What's the experience like? Maybe interacting with some of the other beat writers. Is it cool, or, has any environment been a little bit more hostile?
No, I wouldn't say any environment's been hostile. I think everyone's usually pretty welcoming and very happy to see each other. And usually some of us know somebody on the other beats, so that's always really nice too. But I love the road trips because it is such an opportunity to see other cities, see other stadiums, kind of compare and contrast. I've never thought I'd say this, but my favorite is Seattle because they have a Starbucks in there, and that's me. But it's really kind of cool, and it's been like a great opportunity because I don't know that I would have gone to Cincinnati. I don't know that I'd be going to Minneapolis. And there's a lot of cities I don't know that I would just be visiting, and you really get an opportunity. And we oftentimes as a beat tend to have dinner together the night before the games. So you also kind of get to try like the cool restaurant in the city, and that's a lot of fun too.
That's awesome. And here we go. We have a question from Peachy here. And she says, it's good to see you on here. I'm a huge fan, and she's amazing and always inspiring. Go follow her for all your 49er updates. So before I let you go right now, let everyone know where they can find you.
So you can find me on Twitter at 49ers Fangirl. You can find me on Instagram at Tracy Sandler, and definitely follow me there because that's where I do most of my photos and videos from training camp practices and the press conferences. And then, of course, everything's at our website, fgsn.com.
Awesome. All right. Well, Tracy, we have to do this again. You might have to give us a weekly little update.
I would love
Come on
it.
here for about 15, 20 minutes or so and
Love
break things down. This was fun.
This was awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right. You have a good one. I'll send you backstage. I'll keep this going and I'll shoot you a message in a little
Sounds
bit.
good. Bye.
All right. Tracy Sandler, ladies and gentlemen, that was awesome. And really, to be honest, man, I'm not a beat writer. So when I kind of showed up, Tracy was one of the first people to say, oh, hey, we have followed each other already on social media. But between Jennifer Lee Chan, Matt Mayoko, like everyone that's on the beat, even Grant Cohn, and that was when I met Grant Cohn. And I think everybody sees Grant Cohn on social media and he portrays a certain kind of persona. But in person, awesome. Everybody was awesome. And that's why a lot of times I come on here and defend Grant Cohn a little bit and everybody's like, how dare you defend him? I'm like, man, you guys got to meet these people in person, because in person, everyone was awesome. And they didn't have to be like that with me. Somebody that's kind of on the outside, especially these people who have been around each other for years. And they welcomed me with open arms. So that was truly awesome. I'll stay on a little bit to see if anyone has any more questions, anything that y'all want to talk about. I'll open the chat up right here for y'all. And here you can come in live right now. If you haven't, we are on in the evening right now. Everyone knows, man, typically we are live in the morning time. We come on at 6:30 a.m. Pacific, 8:30 a.m. my time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. So come on live. We talk, we discuss, we talk real football here. I like to think that I have a great following fan base. I think everybody has very great interaction, intelligent questions, and interaction, man. So it's awesome having everybody on here. The floor is yours. If y'all have any questions that you want to ask, feel free, hit the chat, come on live, all that good stuff. And here we go. We got Diego coming on first. Diego, good evening, man. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good evening. Sorry, I missed the part with Tracy. I'm just coming on, but I saw a lot.
You missed the part with Tracy. That was the best part of the show.
I saw everything on Twitter though about training camp. Trey Lance looking. I'm just very happy that Shanahan made it clear that Lance was going to be the guy for the season. And I think it's really weird, like how people are like mad that he had like trying to say that he had like a weird demeanor with the press when that's just like how he is. And
right.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy. All these like Jimmy stands just like finally like they just like can tune them out. I mean, what do you think? I just have a question for you. What do you think about the DBs?
Well, so far it sounds good, right? And you hope that that's something that they can be pretty consistent with. A team that's definitely kind of getting off to the right track. I talked about how on defense, I know you probably weren't in the chat yet, but defense typically starts faster than the offense during training camp. So can the defense keep it up? And typically, again, I talk about defense starting faster, but I just was on with my co-host Brian Peacock. We're the host of Locked On 49ers. Yep. And we talked about, hey, it sounds like the cornerbacks were doing well. But it's like, well, who were the quarterbacks completing these passes on? Because Sudfield, albeit playing with the twos, he was 11 for 11. Trey Lance, he only threw 2 incompletions, and one of them was a guy slipping out of his break, as reported by Grant Cohn. So it sounds like the quarterbacks were fairly efficient. Were they checking down quick? Was the defense trying to keep everything in front of them? I know Sudfield hit a guy over the top as well. So it sounds like both sides were challenging each other. Sounds like the 49ers are potentially kind of starting off on the right track on both sides of the ball, which is something you don't see very often.
Awesome. Yeah. Who do you think is going to take the nickel position with Jason Verrett starting on the PUP list right now? So do you think he's going to be able to start week 1 and that would potentially push Mosley inside, or you think it's more of like a Charvarius Ward and Mosley starting out on the outside?
Yeah, well, it sounds like guys are going to have an opportunity to see what they can do. Kyle Shanahan, for a couple years, he's seen Emmanuel Mosley be able to play in the nickel and do that, right? That was a guy who, while, in preseason, the first 2 years that he started, playing for the 49ers, He played a lot of nickel, played in that position, so he knows it. I'm pretty sure Kyle knows. Hey, if need be, Kyle and D'Amico, excuse me, but D'Amico Ryans as well. If need be, hey, we can put this guy in the slot, but let's give other guys an opportunity. And Tracy Sandler was just on. She talked about Samuel Womack and how she feels like that's a guy who, as a rookie, might be able to come in and play in that nickel role, and that's what a lot of people wanted to see. A guy of his caliber has the speed, long arms. He's not the tallest of guys, but with those long arms, it kind of makes up a little bit for it. Ran a 4.39, I believe it was, 40-yard dash. So has solid speed to be able to run with the vertically pushing routes. If he can get it together and really get to clicking as a rookie, I think that'll help maybe not have to play Jason Verrett, at least not in any full-time capacity.
Is there anybody like that can not shut down Cooper Kupp, but just at least like make it like really hard for him? I think that's like the biggest matchup like within the division, but also like the NFL. Obviously, he's like a really, really great player, and not to bag on like Shark or anything, but it just seemed like both like athletically and just kind of like scheme wise with what the Rams were doing with him, like he had no match.
So typically, you would probably want Jimmy Ward on him. And Jimmy Ward really does a good job. Now, I know he got beat twice by Cooper Kupp in that NFC Championship game, but typically he does a great job covering Cooper Kupp. I mean, he's money. So ideally it would be him, but if you want to keep him at more of a safety type role and not have him have to play man coverage on Cooper Kupp, then you hope it is a guy that can be physical with him. The tough thing is Cooper Kupp predominantly plays in the slot. So in the slot, there's a lot of space. When you listen to some of the things between him and Matthew Stafford, they have like this great rapport with each other where they watch film with each other like an extended amount of hours before practice, after practice, before anybody shows up, all those things. So they know exactly what each other's thinking, and that's hard when you're playing against a guy in space because you can be right, but then they've talked to each other like, hey, if he's over the top, I'm just going to come back this way and throw the ball. I'll be there. And if they have that type of rapport with each other, it almost makes it unguardable. So I guess whoever can be physical with them and force them to make tight window throws, which Matthew Stafford has kind of proven he can do that as well.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. But all right, Diego, I'm going to get to the next caller, man. I appreciate you calling in.
Sounds good.
All right. Here we go. I got TG49er joining us now. How you doing, OG?
Hey, what's up, Croc? How you doing, man? Hey, I got a question, man. Did you hear who was running with Ward at safety?
Sound like Hufanga.
Okay. So they don't give him a shot, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what I was expecting. You listen to some of his teammates vouch for him. Jimmy Ward was talking about how, hey, this is going to be the best safety tandem in the league. And, he might be doing a little too much vouching for his teammate who hasn't really proven himself yet. And especially after, playing so long with Jaquiski Tartt, who I actually, between Tartt and Ward, when healthy, because you've had those questions about both of those guys for a majority of their careers, whether it was one guy or the other. But when healthy and those guys playing together, there weren't too many better safety tandems in the league. And the only reason why it's not viewed that way is because they don't have the interception numbers.
Right.
But as far as just being able to play good football, those guys had it. So we'll see if Hufanga can kind of step into that type of role. But that's a lot because I thought Tartt was a really good football player.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. One more thing also, too. Did you hear about what the starting lineup as far as the O-line, who got the first reps at guard and center?
Yeah, so it sounded like there was kind of like this makeshift, and they're rotating guys out. Kyle Shanahan talked about how there was going to be kind of this rotation of musical chairs to figure out who's going to be where. So I wouldn't even focus so much on who's going with the first unit because I think from day to day, there's a chance that it kind of switches up. But I do know that the kid Buford from UTSA, he was playing at right guard. I know he played McKivitz at left tackle because Trent Williams wasn't there. And I want to say Aaron Banks had time at left guard and some combination of Brunskill getting snaps at center because Kyle Shanahan alluded to already knowing what he looks like at the guard position. Right. So he's like, all right, let's get him some reps at center. We know that, gosh, I'm blanking on his name. I should have it in front of me right now. But
Jay Lamore?
No, not Jay Lamore, but he got some time in there too. The center,
Brindle.
Yeah, Brindle. So,
Yeah.
and Kyle Shanahan said it a different way, and it kind of really threw me off of his whole name. He said he called him like Brindle, or I don't know,
Oh,
some
right.
kind of weird like the way he
Right.
pronounced it. But anyways, I think that's going to change from day to day while
Right.
Kyle Shanahan tries to figure out who is going to take control of trying to find that spot.
Look, oh yeah, I heard you this morning talking about you going to all the away games, and I'm here in
Yeah.
Durham, North Carolina. So you going to the Panthers game when they come to Charlotte?
Oh yeah, I'm there, and I've never been to any of the Carolinas, so I'm there for sure.
Okay. Okay. Well, good. Have to look you up there. All right,
Yeah,
Croc. I
nah,
appreciate it,
definitely.
man.
All right, you have a good one.
All right, take care now.
All right, here we go. Got my guy Gamon coming on. Gamon, good evening.
Good evening, sir. How you doing?
You see, I don't know if you were in here from the jump when we started off going live, but I was kind of like messing up a little bit with the start because I'm so used to announcing it like a different way, and you get so used to like your certain cadence and whatnot.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden I have to like switch it all up because it's the evening. It's not the morning show right now.
You know what I wasn't going to bring that up, Croc. When he did that, it in a weird way, it was kind of like inspiring. Like I guess he wasn't, because I had that conversation I had about my anxiety and the freneticness, and then seeing you kind of bubble over your words, but then kind of regain your composure and then kind of come back at it. I was like, you know what? I guess I'm okay. It's okay. And it even happens to the great ones like Croc.
Oh man, yeah.
I wanted to say, I don't know, Tracy, if you're listening, but I really do hope that you come back and do kind of a regular thing. I think that your story is pretty inspirational. It would have been neat to kind of get a little more bio and backstory on you, because there's not a lot of entrepreneurs that have done what you've done, and let alone, a self-starter. And then not only are you a self-starter, but you're trying to branch that out for other people and opportunities. And I just think that's huge, kind of being that trailblazer and paving a way. But anyways, kind of.
Did you ask, or so I know you had asked about becoming credentialed. Were you talking to her or how I got credentialed?
For her, because
Okay.
I know that hers was kind of just more of the line of just this, hey, I'm this, bubbly fangirl, but then like something happened where it clicked, and then she was just like, you know what, I'm going to do this, and not only can I knock this out of the park, but I can do this for all these other sports and create these doors and opportunities for other people. And it kind of reminded me of some of the stuff that you do, where you would have like these other podcasts and shows where you're very uplifting, and hearing something like positive like that is, it's all about what you feed your mind and that sort of thing. You can either poison it or feed it. And so having somebody who's got that, kind of what they're doing, I think is, like I said, I think it's pretty inspirational. It's pretty cool, because people can just be selfish with their talents. And it's great when people instead of being gatekeepers, they open the door for other people. So
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents on that. I did want to talk about the Hufanga concerns. So I started off with that as well, but I started really becoming steeply a lot less concerned about Hufanga. And I really think this stemmed from me learning my lesson last season. Because there was like two guys that I was really going to come after last season. It was you and Jesse, because you had this take on Ambry Thomas, and he said, hey, we don't need to do a fire sale. You need to just give the kid some time to develop, then he'll be fine. And I was just like, and the season was going. It started off bad.
Do you remember why I said that?
Gosh, you're the two big things that you're really fighting, I would say, in the first preseason games and the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season was, number one, you're trying to basically let everybody know you weren't like hate bashing on Jimmy Garoppolo. It was really funny because if you said something positive about him, everyone was like, oh, you're just a Jimmy stan. But then whenever you actually said something like perceived like negative, they were like, oh, you never liked him, you've always hated on Jimmy. I was like, this guy can't get a break. But I can't remember which one it was.
So with Ambry Thomas, this is what it was. When I was watching him, obviously we know the type of like physical abilities that he has, right? He's a guy, he could run. I think for the most part, he has good feet, not great feet, but he was always in position. And I always felt like that's the hard part. Being able to run with guys, being able to get in phase. So the next step for him, from what I noticed, was, dude, you just gotta make a play on the ball. And I felt like at some point those type of things would start going his way, and that's when we saw him make a few plays later in the season. So it wasn't like a guy who's bouncing around. You talked about me kind of being frenetic a little bit to start the show, but it wasn't a guy that was like frenetic at the line of scrimmage and like, man, I'm over here, he's over here, he's getting whooped, he's getting turned around at the line of scrimmage. It was, look, you're playing well, you're doing the hard part. Now just make a play on the ball. And I thought eventually that would go his way. And then we started to see him get a little bit better with that. But, so let's say today didn't sound like a great day for Ambry Thomas.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, he wasn't great in it wasn't even a preseason game, or it's just practice and like I feel like some people, George Kittle might be a good example. This dude probably doesn't need to practice all preseason, and practices could probably just come in week 1, right, and just light a team up. But I know for me, I need practice to kind of just shake some of that crud off and kind of get back into my own personal rhythm. It's different when you're lining up and you haven't been practicing or going at somebody for a couple months, and then both people are kind of giving their all. And that's the other thing too, is I remember when Richard Sherman got burnt really, really bad that one preseason, and everybody was making a big deal about it, and then started this. It's just, we have to know, like, hey, it's going to go more towards when you don't have the pads on, because that's usually what happens is the offensive players this is the type of the season where they start getting chirpy and start talking all that smack to the defense players. And eventually the defense players are like, just wait till the pads are on, and this is a whole different game. And that's the thing, is like he needs to be a little more physical. And then the other funny thing too about it was nobody wanted to give him credit when he had that interception on OJ or Odell Beckham, right? But they were like, oh, it was just a gimme catch and he should have just caught it. But then people wanted Tart ran off the team when he dropped it. It's like you either give the guy the credit for the interception or it's insane to me. But I want to address the last caller's question about Kupp. Like, yes, I had a couple big issues, and like 2 of them, and one of them was who do we have at nickel? Now, as far as like guarding like Kupp, it's like I tried to tell other team or other fans last season, like, I don't care how good your corner is, you're not keeping the ball at Deebo Samuel's hand. Same thing with Cooper Kupp. Like, we could have an all-pro, nickel corner, but Kupp is going to get his because he's got an outstanding offensive play coordinator. Now, it's kind of like when you go up against Kobe Bryant in his prime for the Lakers. You got to pick your poison. Do you spend all your resources shutting down Kobe Bryant and let the team eat, or do you shut down the team and just say, like, you know what? I mean, Kobe's going to get his, and that's kind of where I'm at with, like, there's Devontae Adams. You can rotate three men on coverage on him, but like Devontae is going to eat if the ball keeps coming to him. So just for it kind of sucks to hear that, but hey, we got one of those guys too. Like, yeah, we can't stop Kupp, but the Rams can't. I know that they know who Deebo Samuel's name is. I can't believe that happened. And then last thing too, Croc, before I get off here, I'm not really too surprised about Brunskill kind of fitting into more of a reserve kind of role. I went back and I started looking through a couple like articles on him from 12, 16, 18, 24 months ago. And I was looking at one specifically like post game where they were talking about him being under center. And reading through the tea leaves, the gist of what I got was that there was too much information for him to process it quickly enough. And so it led to, I want to say, like false starts or maybe some like protection kind of issues. Now that's been a while, so he might have corrected that, but it's more than just, snapping the ball. And then like, it was great when you had that, I can't remember his name, but for the long snapper
Tabor Pepper.
Yes. And so it's more than just snapping the ball, flicking your wrist, getting your head up, and then being in a position to block. Like you have to communicate and make your own reads, just like the quarterback has to read. And it sounds like, again, going back to some of those older articles, it didn't sound like he was the best at doing all that. Also, too, if you look at PFF, right? And this is, I only bring up PFF because this is sometimes what they use to leverage more money in their contracts, right? Those PFF grades. If you look at it, his stats have actually been, he's on the downward trend, right? As far as stats wise. Now, I didn't look at the tape. I don't know what the tape is saying, but just going through older articles and then the PFF stats, that's kind of on a downward spiral. So I'm not really too surprised by that. But otherwise, kind of like I said earlier, I think that Jimmy Garoppolo, one of his strengths is, like you were saying earlier today, his ability to convert third downs.
Yep.
But also too, and this is something that a lot of Niner fans, we forget this. But do you remember like last season how we're going like, man, the first 58 minutes of football, keep it at Jimmy Garoppolo's hands. But for whatever reason, the last 2 minutes of football, that man was closing out games. It was ridiculous. Yeah. And we forget about that. But that's something where if I'm looking at Trey Lance, for him to kind of further his development is, number one, please, Trey Lance, I hope during this offseason, not only did you work on your forward throwing motion, but also to sliding and protecting yourself. Yeah. And then the other thing too is, can you run the 2-minute drill? The third down, I think is going to happen, but can you run the 2-minute drills effectively? Again, Croc, can't thank you enough. Thank you. All right, bye.
All right, Gamon. I'll see you tomorrow morning. All right, here we go. I got my last guy coming on. We got Legs Gamon. Good morning. Good morning. I'm so used to doing this show in the morning. Good evening. How you doing?
Hey, I've been listening to you since this morning. Been working all day.
Yeah, got to. Yes, sir.
Hey, so random roster prediction. I'm going with the Jordan Matthews, tight end 3. He worked out with Trey Lance on a pro day, and I got him in on my Madden roster. I updated my roster to have the rookies on there. And that dude be catching everything I throw at him in traffic and everything. So just because of that game, I'm predicting it. And the connection with Lance. So watch. Yeah,
that's definitely a connection that they can build. And I think people kind of forget this with Jordan Matthews. He was at Trey Lance's pro day. Everybody remembers 49ers put on that second pro day with Trey Lance. And Jordan Matthews was there catching passes from Trey Lance. So you can kind of see him start to kind of, build a little camaraderie there. It doesn't mean that much. But one thing about Jordan Matthews right now, 49ers, they kind of have I don't want to say it's wide open at the tight end 2 spot with the competition, but you have Warner who's out right now. And, the other guy is 82. I'm blanking on his name right now. It's been a long day. Ross Dwelly. All right. And there is an opportunity for a guy to be kind of that flex tight end. Obviously, he's a terrific pass catcher. So definitely want to see, what's up with him. Matthews has been around. He knows the offense. He should be comfortable. He's a good pass catching guy. If he can really take on and maybe become a little bit better blocker, he can for sure be like that third active tight end that they also use as a flex tight end as well.
Yep. That's all I got to say.
All right, man. Appreciate you coming on.
All right, man.
All right, shout out to everybody that contributed to a great show this evening. This is the 49ers evening show. I will bring this back at least a couple times throughout the week. I got QB coming on, Greg Pinelli. He's going to be coming on in the evenings as well. If I have any other guests on evening, I think we might do this evening thing 3 times a week at least. But y'all do know we go live in the mornings. Only time we won't go live in the morning is if I'm traveling to or from a game and just can't make it. But it's been amazing. It's been amazing talking to y'all this evening. We've had around 200 solid people in here tuning in, checking in. Shout out to Tracy Sandler. If you missed Tracy Sandler on here, she was in here for about the first 15 to 20 minutes. Go back, watch that. Great insight. Definitely going to have her back on next week. But y'all know we live tomorrow. Oh, everybody that's in here right now. Tune in tomorrow morning because I'm doing the live giveaway. I got the gift basket I'm getting with a bunch of 49er stuff in there. I'm picking a random person. Whoever I pick, they get the basket with all the 49er stuff and a jersey of their choice. I'm ordering it and having it shipped straight to your house. All right. So we're going to be doing that tomorrow morning. Make sure y'all tune in to the San Francisco 49ers morning show. Set your reminder. Click the notification bell. Make sure you're subscribed. You got to be subscribed. I think I got to do that. I'm going to do that on Twitter tonight. Like, giveaway. Got to be subscribed to the YouTube channel. Here's the link. Like, all the stuff, notification bell. Everybody's better be in here because we don't know. I'm going to be talking about practice. Then next thing you know, boom, giveaway time. Let's go. So make sure y'all are tuned in tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. Pacific time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. We are live for about an hour and a half. Y'all know what it is, man. Shout out Tracy Sandler and everybody that tuned in for a great show. But I'll see y'all tomorrow morning. Peace.
Intercepted. It is picked off by Eric Crocker. Over midfield. He'll run it all the way into the end zone. Touchdown.
Crop Talk TV podcast. Peace.